I'm just barely awake, but, you know, I'm so psyched up for this show. This is our end of the year show.
Yes, it's the end of the year. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally.
But
it took forever.
Yeah, it's kind of been some kind of year.
It's 2 years. It's like COVID years. A COVID year is like a dog year.
It seems that way.
It's like 7 years.
It seems that way.
And now that it's back, COVID is back.
It seems that I keep saying it seems that way. I never want to say anything for sure, because if I say it is, then it is. But
magical thinking, my friend.
It is. I'm just trying to
me too.
Pull it together here. And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Natx.
And I'm Sleepy Mike.
And boy, do we have a show for you today on RMA. It's the RMA New Year's Spectacular. Today, we will review this year in recovery, hear some Monkster voicemails, and reveal our New Year's resolutions for RMA. And Grant Boyken, a.k.a. G Money Smooth, a.k.a. the editor-at-large of the RMA Newsroom, and the mastermind behind the preeminent recovery news website, SoberLiningsPlaybook.com, breaks down this year in recovery.
Wow.
All this and more today on a very special edition of RMA. And
wow. How did we get Grant to agree to come on and do something?
I had to announce his website like that. That was it. He's like, listen, I'll do it, but I need you to say the name of my website.
Yeah, well, it's nice of him to join us.
No, but for real, we are in a bind this week because Mike was on a tour of America with his family, touring all of the museums, and so I was
it was a lot of museums this week.
It was, and I'm like, shit, we're gonna do a show, you know, because the last time we did a show, it was early, so. You guys know that if there's too many days in between shows, I start to go nuts.
Yes, you do.
And we'll go into what all I was doing.
You were very busy, though. You were a very busy beaver this holiday season.
That's right. It was very busy.
Is this episode brought to you by the Recovery in the Middle Ages Patreon?
Patreon? What's that?
Patreon, it is a members-only subscription service that gives us the latitude to create more content, backstage dirt, and a closer connection to the Monkster community while financially supporting the Herculean efforts required to keep the RMA movement moving forward. Just added. Tell them what you just added.
Okay, guys. What is going on the Patreon? I'm so excited about this. My son is on some kind of he does gaming, streaming, and all that shit, and they all use something called Discord to chat with one another. They do everything with Discord. Mostly it's a voice chat. It's also kind of like Facebook, but faster and more secure. And in any case, I got part of the Patreon setup we have lets us integrate this Discord discussion app for all of our patrons, and it gives us like a special little. On top of the bonus content we're putting out there, we're also in I call it the inner sanctum, and it's really like you want support, you want to talk about this show, you want to talk to other Monksters. It's like kind of an instant group chat, like message board / we can do Zoom meetings on it. There's a bunch of Monksters on there now. We're having a great time. Mike finally, I did all of this while Mike was kind of incommunicado.
Well, so my sister was coming up from Florida for Christmas. I was having 20 people over at my house on Christmas Eve, and you decided it would be a good time to set up the Patreon. Who am I to get in the way of progress?
Listen, just trust me on this one. The Monksters love it. And it keeps me occupied when we're not doing the show. Like I'm like always thinking about recovery shit. I'm always.
Do you juggle?
I can juggle. I showed you. Remember, we can both do the triple.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm always like. But
I'm just wondering because your hands, I think, need to be active all the time.
Yeah, I can juggle. Yes. I could juggle while doing the show and chewing gum. But listen, it's been super. I love it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And
it's so funny because I watched Forrest Gump recently, and that sounded very Forrest Gump.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And Yeah. So, and guys, it's really, I haven't figured out how to gift Patreon subscriptions, and I looked it up.
Is there a way to do that?
No.
You should gift me one.
Yeah. Because we don't even have 2 logins. But it's been so cool to get to know some of the Monksters that joined up. They're, we're going back and forth. Sometimes if somebody messages there, like everybody gets a message and I can write back right away. And so it's a really cool way to kind of up your level of recovery support. I know a couple guys on there now that are, they're getting a lot out of it, and it's a work in progress. So
if your if your New Year's resolution includes more Nat and Mike occasionally,
he's coming on there too.
Go look at the Patreons. There's a couple of levels. Yeah, there's something for everybody. You can get in for like $3 a month. Just do it. Why not?
Yeah, and plus,
we're still going to be on the Facebook, so don't worry about that.
Definitely, but I wanted like people who really needed extra support, or really just like, I don't know. Yeah. It's really cool. So patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages. And come on and join us. And the bonus content coming this year is going to be fire.
Second to none. We're working on some video stuff. While you were doing the Patreon, I was doing a deep dive into figuring out how to start streaming and doing video and all that stuff. And we're going to have that discussion offline.
You do stuff too.
I do stuff
behind the scenes.
And I actually demoed in my house a video setup that I think might be a good place for us to start, but we'll talk about that. So I don't know. Go on there, $3 a month. The podcast will always be free.
Yes, it will.
Yes.
And I wanted to say, welcome to all the Monksters listening stateside, around the world, down the street, across the table, and right next door. Welcome all. Settle in, buckle up, and get ready for excitement, comedy, tragedy, intrigue, mystery, and so much more. Where can they find us, Mike?
I'll tell you where they can find us. And this was the other thing that you decided to do this week. I might add, you redesigned, or you hired somebody to redesign middleagesrecovery.com.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Oh, is it not out yet?
Well, it's out. I'm just still making
little changes. It looks pretty darn good.
You like it?
If you go to, remember how like you guys would go to the mobile, this website on your phones, and it would look like absolute weird stuff was going on there? Now try it. Just go and
cool.
Look it up. It's very cool. So you can find us at middleagesrecovery.com.
Super easy to listen on there too.
It is. There's a player, so you don't even have to go to a podcast app. You can stream it right from your phone. Of course, we're still available in the usual places like Podbean, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Come hang out with us, get show updates, meet other Monksters. There's funny memes, the latest news and views on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now as we mentioned, the Inner Sanctum at patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages, one word. Please join our recovery support and Monkster Hangout Den on the private Facebook group found on our public-facing page under Groups. We also have weekly RMA recovery meetings chaired by the great G Money Smooth and the lovely and talented Aaron Moore on alternating weeks, or as they deem it necessary. That's good. If you're having trouble finding it, please email me, Mike R. at middleagesrecovery.com for details, and I will send you the top secret Zoom codes so you can get on.
Cool.
Great reviews will be read on the air. So if you guys could go on Apple Podcasts and drop us a 5-star, we'd appreciate it. We're still clawing our way up the ladder on Apple search terms and the front page. We want to get on the front page. We want to be the #1 recovery podcast in America.
For middle-aged people, or like for all people?
We're niche, but not really. There's something here for everyone. And I think if you ask some of our more younger RMA Monksters like Ryan and I don't know who else is young.
He's the one that's the youngest, and I actually have a message from Ryan. That he wrote. I was talking to him last night. He's doing great in rehab, as you guys know. Ryan is a younger Monkster who we encourage to try and get into recovery, and he got this opportunity to go to Florida and get into a program for real, and he did it. And so we're really supporting him and trying to be there for him. And I asked him, I said, is there anything you want to say to the Monksters for the New Year's special? And he sent me this. Yo, this is Ryan from Chicago, the dude in rehab who posts selfies of various body parts and updates on the shit show that is my life in treatment in South Florida. The truth is, I'm doing infinitely better than I was 30-something days ago when I was in Chicago, screwed up on a smorgasbord of substances.
The smorgasbord.
I love it.
That tailors into Chicago's, German and Slavic heritage.
Does it?
Right?
Oh, it's funny.
I'm just.
I bet you it does. I don't say smorgasbord that much. He says,
not that much.
He continues to say, I need to constantly remind myself of the hell that I have come from when I get caught up in petty grievances here. With that being said, having just got through the holidays, it was somewhat of a somber mood here as I was missing my family and feeling full of deep shame and regret. That's the alcoholic addict condition in the beginning, I suppose, and I took the punches as they came. Every day, however, the clouds are parting, and I'm feeling more and more human. Love that. More clear every day. Little things fill me up with gratitude right now, like being able to look people in the eye when I talk, being able to laugh and speak in complete sentences. And I'm noticing that, Ryan. This is well written, compared to the previous messages.
Compared to your slightly off-key rendition of recovery in the news.
I thought it was perfect. Then he goes on to say, it's weird, though, because I also feel as if I've reached the end. Not the end of my life.
Not the end.
Jeez. But the end of an era. As if my youth...
As an error?
Era. Yeah, or an error.
R-O-R. The end of an error.
And then he says, as if my youth has been swept out from under me and shit is finally real.
Welcome to middle age, Ryan.
Yeah.
And you thought you weren't a middle-aged man.
No, here you go. I spent many years living in fantasy and future-based thinking, always thinking of what my life could be, and that gave me a sense of peace and tranquility, even in my darkest moments using. Those projections in my mind never came true, and all of a sudden I feel I've been smacked with reality. A sober man in his mid-30s now, it feels as if it was all a lie. It's as if my ego and perception of everything has been stripped down to nothing. It feels awful and apocalyptic, but at the same time, I think God or the universe or whatever intended it to be this way. Now with nothing, I can rebuild my life from scratch. And given I stay within the parameters of sobriety and seek out a life of meaning and purpose, maybe I can find what I have been searching for and thought I had found in substances. I love you guys, the show, and the community. It's truly been a part of my new foundation, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Have a blessed fucking new year, and keep your heads up always. Much love, Ryan. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's great, man. So he's really he just made a lot of progress in the last
spit this out in like
few weeks.
He wrote that in like 5 minutes. Like last time I was like, hey, would you want to write something? And he came back with that.
That's great.
I mean, it's amazing, the transformation. I mean, we don't even know you on a daily basis type of thing, but just knowing you the way we do, everybody sees a difference, right? You're doing so good. Keep it up.
Yeah.
And next time you're in New York, I will get you a bagel and lox, and maybe we go to Katz's.
Maybe we go to Katz's.
Yeah.
I've been really angling for a trip to Katz's for a while.
Let's do it.
I actually sent some Katz's to my in-laws for
really?
Christmas. I sent them a box of like a deconstructed pastrami and corned beef sandwich.
That's funny. They probably talked to Dave when they ordered it.
That's also funny.
He takes the orders, I think, customer service.
So
thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. That's one way you can send us a message. Another way would be to call the RMA hotline at 516-888-6297. We're going to leave that up all year, and that's if you don't feel like typing out your story, you can just leave it in a voicemail. We have all different ways for you to communicate with us. And of course, the best way to help the show is to share the show with a friend. If you get something out of it, share the love and help grow the movement.
Yes.
So,
don't we have a couple voicemails?
Yes. Our Christmas show last week, a couple people called us right after we recorded.
Yeah.
So why don't we... Oh, first a correction. We need to issue a correction.
Okay.
Do you know what this correction is?
I don't remember.
Well... The Google Voice translated Maya's name as Mariah.
Oh, Mariah.
So apologies to Maya, right? Because
Maya.
We know you're not Mariah, so we apologize for that.
Yes,
and
I blame Google
apologizes for that.
Yes.
That's they transcribe it and it's not always right. I'm assuming they got this one right because this one is from Corey from the 843.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Hey guys, this is Corey. I've listened to all the podcasts, member of the private Facebook group as well as the Patreon group, which is awesome. Loving it. I'm calling to leave a message for the Christmas hotline if I'm not too late. So anyway, as far as recovery method and a little bit about me, I had 7 years of sobriety up until 2016, relapsed, and been kind of in a cycle of that ever since. I originally went back to my recovery method prior to that 7 years, and found that was no longer working. So I've kind of gotten into this idea of the alt recovery, which I really like, kind of open and being open to other ideas for recovery and kind of finding out what works for me. One thing that has been hugely helpful has been this show. The RMA podcast is awesome. I relate to it probably more than any other show that I listen to. You guys do an awesome job of bringing some humor into a normally or what can be a dark and really difficult subject. So I very much enjoy and appreciate that. It's uplifting. And so I'm also, like I said, participating in the private Facebook group, the Patreon group. I'm also a member of Recovery Elevator, which I've enjoyed. I'm working the 12 steps with a sponsor, but not going to in-person meetings. I'm not, I'm, like I said, using RMA, Recovery Elevator, other methods, but the 12 steps with a sponsor / mentor has been very helpful to me in early sobriety. So anyway, that's been great. And I've been enjoying the show and looking forward to what's to come. And this whole Patreon idea and putting out more shows and all that stuff is very exciting. I know big things to come. So anyway, just wish everyone in the RMA community a Merry Christmas, and we'll see everyone in the Zoom meetings and on the Facebook page. Goodbye.
All right.
That's it.
Corey's been awesome. He's like the guy in the group that I think he's been at our recovery meetings, and he is really active in the Facebook private group, and he's a patron. And I always get a lot out of his shares. He's really positive, and thank you, Corey.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was great.
We appreciate
it's always
it.
great to see you participating in the Facebook and everything.
Yeah, and
Patreon, we appreciate it.
And I've been getting to know him a little better on the Discord dealy, so it's pretty cool. Thank you, Corey.
Cool. This next caller is from 413, and I don't see a name here, so maybe super anonymous. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, should we just play it?
Let's play it. See what happens.
Let's see what happens.
Hi, Mike and Nat. It's Hope. And
Oh, it's Hope.
Oh, Hope. Okay.
I'm calling
Didn't translate.
your hotline, I hope. I just really want to say thank you for your podcast and the Facebook group and your advice. I've laughed, I've cried, and it's just really encouraging to hear people who are, well, in the same boat, I guess I could say. But Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and your families, and I look forward to 2022. Thank you. Bye.
That was great.
Thanks.
I'm so glad that she called in. She's also on the groups, and it's been great getting to know her too. And thank you so much. Yeah, 2022 is going to be it'll be great.
Let's hope so.
Listen, when people come to my store and I tell them I'm closing and they get this hangdog look, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, "No, this is great." I'm like, "You don't understand."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, things are about to get so much better for me and my family. And I've got so many big plans. And listen, this thing has run its course. I know people liked it and everything, but it's time.
What slogan comes to mind? Do you think like you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, or maybe something more positive?
Yeah, I can't think
the
of
future's so bright. I got to wear shades.
Got to wear shades.
Or out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know why I feel like I need to attach idiomatic expressions.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Or if nothing changes, nothing. We could use AA ones. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. One time I had a therapist who's only her only credentials was she was 40 years in AA and had some certification or whatever. And so her whole sessions with me would be
Just throwing those at you.
just bromides from AA. And one time, I was giving her a big problem that I was having. I was really struggling. And then she just looked at me dead in the eye, like she was about to drop a serious whiz bomb. Right? And she goes, Nat, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I was like, you lost me.
How much am I paying you for this?
Yeah. Thank you. Good night. So,
although, along the lines to that one, the one that I do like is in order to change your life, you have to change your life.
Oh,
well, I mean, that too, right?
It rhymes with life. But yeah, they're just saying the same thing with different inflections.
Yes.
That's wisdom right there.
It's a truth, though.
Yeah, sure.
If you don't change your life is not going to change.
If you don't
you can spend years thinking about not drinking. Or it's like, what was that line Woody Allen had in, was it Annie Hall when he goes, New York, I've been thinking about leaving. I've been thinking about leaving for 35 years now. And if you never leave,
you never leave. You never leave. My favorite quote from his is in Deconstructing Harry, where he's got this, his sister converted to like a more like conservative Jewish sect or whatever, where it's all Orthodox. And he was, an atheist Jewish guy. And she said, you know what, Harry, your problem is you're a self-hating Jew. And he said, yeah, I might hate myself, but it's not because I'm Jewish. And I love that line. I love that line. Or he took a line from a famous comedian who I can't remember his name, and he said something like, I would never want to be a part of a club that would have me as a member.
Yeah.
That's another good one.
That's a good one.
Because that's how I feel.
But, I mean, I guess just to sort of, square the circle, it's like, this is the time of the year where people renew things, right? But
subscriptions.
You can always, you can always think about changing. Like, I thought about stopping drinking for 30 years.
Yeah.
In
the South, they call it fixing.
But you can always just put it off for a couple days or say, oh yeah, next week, tomorrow, next week.
I'm fixing to think about doing it.
And then if you don't do it, and then, all of a sudden decades go by.
Yeah.
So
don't let
you got to make a change. Make the change now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little uncomfortable, but just do it anyway.
If you don't stand up, you don't stand up. You see that? You can do it with anything.
You can do it with anything.
Send your ridiculous bromide to my Carr at middleagesrecover.com. What is it? If you don't drive your car, you don't drive your car.
Yeah.
You could do it with anything.
Yeah.
So you can drop a whiz bomb any time of the day. Just say the same thing twice with a different inflection, and you got it. Where are we on the outline? I think
life update.
Holy Christmas crackers.
Yeah.
COVID Christmas. We had a crazy, weird Christmas, and this happened after we recorded the last show.
Yeah, literally like a few minutes after.
So, yeah, many of you may know that we had a big Christmas planned at my house. About 15 of our closest family members were coming over. The house was decked out. My wife had bought 15 bottles of wine and champagne.
Wow.
And a ton of these filet mignon that we got from the butcher, as my mother-in-law
calls
it. I don't know. My mother-in-law's got this Polish butcher.
Ooh,
she always
Polish
says,
butchers are the best.
You got to go to the Polish butcher. The meat is so tender. We always give her a hard time about dropping our R's at the end of words. It's funny. And so, 2 days before break, my oldest son, he's in the 6th grade, and he wasn't feeling great, but he had just gotten his second vaccination. So when he was sniffling a little bit, we're like, he doesn't have it.
It's the thing. It's the side effects from the vaccine.
Sure, that don't exist. Or maybe they do.
I was knocked flat on my ass for 2 days.
I had about a day. So it does happen. So we were like, fine. But I guess he was, really sneezing, or it was just bad. And the nurse calls us, got to pick him up. This is 2 days before break.
Mm-hmm.
And we got him tested. Lo and behold, he has COVID. So what happens now? A whole cavalcade of consequences happen, especially because it happened at school. So now
the first one was you called me and you're like, Noah just tested positive. And I'm like, I just spent 2 hours in a room with you.
Yeah.
So I rounded up the kids and went down to the same testing place that Noah and Christine did literally 2 hours later. And we all got tested.
Yeah.
We were all negative.
And
anyway,
this is how it spread. This is how it spreads. And not only that, my younger son had to stay home from school and isolate.
And I'm sure he was crushed.
Yeah, and at first Noah was really upset. He's like, I ruined Christmas. And I'm like, Noah, I know you pretty well, and you are going to have the best Christmas ever, okay? And he ended up having the best Christmas ever. But it was just really hard, telling all of our family, this is the time of year. We couldn't even go to church. And I really look forward to that. I know some people don't get church or they don't like it, or it's different for everybody, and it's really like a family to me. I mean, I grew up in that church. We don't sit around wagging our finger at people who don't believe. It's not that kind of thing. It's more like just a group of people who want to do right by other people and, make the world a better place. That's really what it is. But that's just us. I can't speak for the Episcopals across the street. I just can't. I can't.
They do the same thing.
I don't know what
just
they do.
with nicer bells.
Right. And the Episcopal Church actually has the AA meetings that I used to go to. In any case, it was just so canceling it and just the letdown of not having that Christmas, especially after building up to it. It's like getting Christmas blue balls. Like I'm ready to go. It's going, and then boom. Right?
That's something, man. That's an analogy.
But it makes sense.
It makes sense. I mean, so there was no way for you to achieve any sort of release this Christmas?
No.
Because to me, if that had happened to me, my sense would have been an overwhelming sense of relief that I did not have to engage in all the social obligations and everything. But I mean, I was thinking that at the time that we went down to get tested, maybe this is my way to get out of Christmas Eve and having my sister fly up from Florida. No, I'm kidding. I mean, we ended up having a very nice visit, but that part, there is a part of me that wants to just lock the door, pull the blinds down, and that's it.
Me too. And I was feeling that, but feeling guilty for feeling that.
Right. I would have felt guilty too. Yeah.
But it was okay. We had a great Christmas. My wife is going a little crazy because she had to stay home from school too.
Oh, yeah.
I continued to work this whole week while she was off with the kids, and they couldn't even have friends over. She couldn't take them anywhere because of quarantine.
You were allowed to, because you double vax plus.
I'm boosted,
you're vaxxed and boosted.
And I have zero symptoms. My wife didn't get sick. I didn't get sick. Nobody tested positive. But the kids had a great Christmas anyway. A couple of our family visited from afar. They literally
threw presents at the front door and ran away.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
They ran up, dropped it, and then they stood like my brother came with his kids. So great to see my nephews. One of my nephews is he's like a tennis star, and my other one is like a swimming star. And the two of them, they're super sports kids, but they're such great kids. And they came, and we, Merry Christmas, and a couple of them were just behind the glass door. They didn't want to come in. I felt like I was in prison. I'm like, we need a phone, back and forth. But the kids got...
At least you had 20 pounds of filet mignon to eat.
Yes, and we froze it. So we've been able to chop a little off and,
just gnaw off at the end of the filet.
Yeah. Well, what about your Christmas? Yours went forward, right? You didn't have a COVID Christmas.
No.
I mean, we all had a COVID Christmas, but...
It's funny you should say that. We did not. I mean, my sister flew up from Florida with my niece, and I hadn't seen them since my dad's funeral several years ago. So that was nice getting caught up. We actually had a very nice visit. We went to the Museum of Natural History to see the dinosaur bones and all that stuff. And
I love that place.
Recently reopened the halls of gems and minerals, which is very...
I was at the new one before, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
I love that. I used to go as a kid too, so it takes me back.
It was not a hit because...
What?
Well, the museum was, but the halls of gems and minerals was not a hit.
Wow.
I mean, how do you compare with Titanosaur?
Yeah, that's true.
With a bunch of shiny rocks, really.
True. Well,
I like gems and minerals.
I'm a fan.
But and we saved it till the end of the day, which may not have been the best thing to do.
Close the show with the gems. It makes sense.
Yeah.
You want the glittery stuff.
But it was nice, but the museum itself was freaking me out because I had all this COVID in my head. You know what I mean? You guys had gotten knocked down. Half the people in our town seem like they have COVID. And so then I'm walking around in New York City and nobody in the museum is taking it seriously, and
that's
you go to the cafeteria and everyone's got the mask off and everything, whatever. I mean, you can have different opinions on the efficacy of masking, but it certainly seems that New York has been re-gripped by the fear of the COVID monster, except in the museums and stuff. But anyway, that was great. We had another few days of visiting. That was fine. And then I took every we took the family down to Philadelphia for a couple of days, just to get out of town. I used some Marriott points that I had saved up from when I used to travel for work, and we got a room at the Ritz, Carlton. It's actually kind of a shitty hotel.
Was it shitty?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed.
Is it like the Milford Plaza where?
Not that shitty.
Where if they use the word plaza in the name, so you think maybe it's a nice hotel.
It's
it's the
not.
Milford Plaza.
But I mean, our room wasn't ready at 5 p.m. and then they put us on different floors. I was like, whatever, guys. And then it took a half an hour to get the car out of the valet, which was $60. I mean, you know what? The hotel was like we barely spent any time there, right? We went to another 2 museums, UPenn's Anthropology Museum, and then we went to the Museum of the American Revolution. So cool. Erin and I got to go out by ourselves to get Ethiopian food. We let the kids order room service and stay back at the hotel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a really nice couple of days. A lot of driving though.
Yeah.
But we had a good time. And then we get back, and this morning my wife tells me that one of our relatives has COVID for the second time. She had gotten it early on in the pandemic, really bad, needed like oxygen and everything. Yes.
Interesting.
And boosted.
Interesting. And she got sick this
And she got it again. And she's sick.
She became very
102
ill.
Fever, the whole nine.
How old is she?
35, I think.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Man, that's what scares me,
I mean, we did the count back, and I don't think there was any exposure to us from Christmas Eve.
Wow.
So I'm not all that concerned, but it just seems like everybody around me is getting hit, and we're like
kids are getting
bobbing and weaving, trying to avoid the COVID streams.
Yeah.
Erin and Ben's actually going to get his second shot for the vaccine today, and Erin's getting her booster today. But that means they're both going to be like out of commission tomorrow, probably.
Well, only if you project that into the universe. See, every time I'm not feeling good at this past week or so, and I start to go down that road, like, oh, maybe I have COVID, I immediately change my thinking and say, no, I'm fine. I will be fine. All is well. And I'm using my magical thinking to just will myself to feeling good.
Well, I told you who else has the COVID, right? My buddy. Oh. I don't want to name him, but
yeah, he's a fan of the show, or used to be.
Yeah, at least he is in October and probably January.
Right.
So
dry January.
Yeah. So I dropped he wasn't sure if he had it, so I actually had an extra COVID test, and I dropped it at his front porch and backed away slowly.
Well, COVID tests are impossible to come by too, and I have a couple somewhere in my house, and I don't know where it is. But like this COVID thing, you know me, I like structure because I'm so unstructured and I'm so scattered and so disorganized. I need the world around me to be structured. This is why I go berserk when things happen like COVID, for example.
Right.
Or, my kid stays home sick. I'm screwed up. I'm off my game. And so, this year, part of my there's a daily schedule that I need, and then there's an annual schedule. Things should happen, like clockwork. Every September I need the kids to be in school. That whole thing. So Christmas Eve, everything was upside down this year. Usually we have some really nice stuff that we do. We'll go out with one of our cousins for dinner, maybe Christmas Eve. We do the church service after. And then, it's just like a whole thing. We see my parents and so this year, we tried, I just made the most of it, and I'm always like cheerleading my family when things go sour. I'm like, it's okay, guys. Like, this is going to be the best Christmas ever. I just say it until it happens.
There's Nat with that positivity again.
I'm just trying, because it's so easy to get down about it. And it's like, you got to fight the feeling, man. You got to, and so we did church on Zoom on my TV. And, I made, we all sat there and watched it. And it's just, I don't know, we watched Christmas movies and it was nice. I don't know. We made the most of it. And Christmas morning, the kids got some cool gifts. And I've been playing with their gifts this entire week. Yeah. The number one gift is the PS5, which I miraculously wrangled from a neighbor who accidentally bought two, according to her.
Accidentally buy two PS5s?
I think it has to be bullshit.
It sounds like a tall tale.
I got it for like way less than it's being sold for. And it's awesome.
Good.
And we had a great time. But
I had an interesting experience on Christmas Eve, we had a bunch of people at the house, and one of them was my father-in-law, who I think I've mentioned on the show before, has like 30 some odd years in AA.
But you guys never talk about it.
Except we're sitting in the room in front of the fire, and I think we started talking about anxiety, and he suffers from a little bit of generalized anxiety, and we were talking about that, and I said, my anxiety level really went down when I quit drinking 2.5 years ago. And it was like I had just opened a door, and he just walked right through it, and he started telling me all these stories about how he used to drink, and what happened like the week before he got sober, and then he started going off on like, and I was trying to meet my drug dealer up here, and this whole thing, and I'm like,
Did you record it?
No, I had never heard any of this stuff, and so he just kind of bent my ear. It was like we had like a little mini meeting there in the living room.
That's weird. That's so cool though.
And I told him, my friend and I, we started this podcast, and it was like nothing. Like, I don't know if he like listens to it or doesn't know what podcasts are.
Probably doesn't know what.
I think that's probably more like. But anyway, I really appreciated the share, and it was nice, having that level of communication. He's a great guy, always super supportive of the family and everything, and he works like a dog. And he's
your father-in-law, right?
Yeah, Aaron's
right,
dad.
right. Interesting.
Yeah. Good man from all angles.
Now that's the magic of Christmas, Mike.
There's something.
It's the magic.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for the magic, and I feel like that was magical.
Yeah. It was good. It was great. Yeah.
It was sad but relaxing. One thing that came to mind is that my wife's mother and sister are not married. My mother-in-law is a widow.
Your wife's mother and sister are not married.
Not to each other, and nor to another person.
I was confused for a minute.
So, they're alone, quote unquote. And it occurred to me that, loneliness, especially now, and I know this is obvious, but it's just something that popped out to me because I was listening to my wife talk to them, and my wife's sister got COVID really bad. And so on top of being isolated and not like really having a family of her own there in the house, there's a lot of sadness, and, sometimes it manifests in being angry at, like a family member that does have family in the house.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And
yes,
it's sort of like, it's put, and I understand it. You know what I mean? I get it. I know why they're feeling that way, and I feel horrible about it. But it's not like I didn't make humongous sacrifices to be in this situation where I do have a family in my house.
Right.
Like the grass is always greener, but it's a real, and this is why the holidays can be so dangerous for people who, do have substance use disorder or depression. It's because, the society and our culture, it lifts up these holidays and makes them so big. There's so much pressure.
There is.
That it's easy to feel left out because, of course, not everybody's Christmas or holiday will be the same. We all have different.
Well, especially people who are still struggling with their addictions or their alcohol issues. I mean.
Yeah, and the pandemic on top of it,
yes.
And so, I don't know. If you guys are feeling that way, like nobody's alone out there if you've got a support group. Like one of my, the best examples of this is I have a friend who I grew up with, and we didn't hang out at all in high school. I mean, I barely knew him until after college, and we keep in touch. Turns out we're both in the program, except he's a guy that just didn't get married. He's living basically on his own and stuff, but he dove into his AA groups where he's at. And he really gets so much socially out of going to the meetings and stuff. And it occurred to me, I'm like, that's a really important part of AA. Like sometimes it's enough just to have a social group that you can connect with like that. You know what I mean? And I was thinking how important it is, for him. And he picked up knitting. We were talking about hobbies a little bit. He knit me a bunch of stuff for Christmas and my whole family.
Very nice.
Yeah, I got these really nice. But yeah, guys, it can be tough. But, that's one of the reasons I want us to stick together on, and in the Facebook group. You can always message me or Mike. I will respond. And yeah, but it was
Me too.
It was a good day, you know. Legos, AirPods. I don't know. Did you get anything cool for Christmas that you're like want to brag about?
Not really. I mean, I ordered my own Christmas present. I just told Erin to press the button. I'm like, press this button. And she pressed the order button on Amazon, and she didn't know what she'd ordered, but that's fine. But that's fine because I'm, you know, that's the way I am. It was basically just some lighting equipment for photography. So
Nice.
you know, yeah, it was great.
So you're just getting I got a present for myself that is for the show too.
What is it?
So, you know, I want to do these Patreon shows, and in order to do that, we're not always going to be in here. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I needed a good mic that I could just connect to my computer and we could do the video thing.
Oh.
So I got a cool, one of those cool Yeti Blue mics. So
I thought you were going to tell me that the Christmas present you got yourself for the show was that swanky suit you were wearing in some of those photos.
I forgot about that.
Did somebody give that to you, or did you buy that all by yourself? And if so, does the fact that you're colorblind have anything to do with it?
Probably has something to do with it. So I've always wanted one of those suits, and every year I see them on Facebook or ads, and I'm like, oh, I want one of those suits. Anyway,
You should describe it for people that aren't on our Facebook group that don't see the picture, because it's really something else.
it looks like Christmas wrapping paper on a suit.
Yes.
And it matching tie, blazer, pants.
Beautiful.
Green, red. I don't know. I'm colorblind. I think it was Christmas colors.
It was definitely Christmas colors.
And for Christmas morning, I opened up one of my gifts, and there it was. So I immediately, and keep in mind, no one was coming to the house. The whole point was for me to shtick around with all of the people visiting us. So I put it on anyway for some pictures. So I posted some on a group. I got some funny comments.
Cool.
That was one of my favorite. Gifts.
So what are we doing? I got a text from Grant, nervously wondering
Oh shit!
when we were going to call him.
Well, it's 10:00.
Yeah.
All right.
When did we say we were going to?
Let's call Grant now, and then we'll do.
Then we can move on.
Yeah.
Do this stuff after.
Okay.
All
Did
right.
you have the number I sent?
Of course.
All right. Yeah. I was just so, in my head. I'm like, I got so much on my mind, but we got to bring Grant on. This is going to be cool. Yeah. He's worked out a nice list of.
Good morning. This is Grant.
Good morning, Grant.
Grant.
This is Mike and Nat.
Oh man, sorry, I wasn't watching the time. We were like so engrossed in the nonsense we were talking about, and all of a sudden, Mike's like, "Oh, we got to call Grant." So,
well, thanks for sending that little text to remind us, Grant.
Happy to.
We're just rambling on like we usually do.
I wanted to do an intro for Grant. What did I say here? Oh, so I don't remember it. So Grant is the editor at large of the RMA newsroom. He's also G Money Smooth moderator on the private Facebook group, and he helps us a ton. And he's always aggregating these news and views on his website, soberliningsplaybook.com. And I'm just happy to have you, Grant. How are you?
I am great. Happy New Year to you. And
Happy
Monksters.
New Year.
This is great. So Nat reached out to me yesterday and said, could I put together a little summary of what's happened this year?
I may have been panicking a little about the show. I do that sometimes.
Do you plan at the last minute?
Not usually, but
That's me.
This
I do
week,
that.
Mike was on his tour, and I'm like, I want to do something special, and I'm like, Grant's gonna know what to do, anytime. I'm like, let's see if Grant has any ideas, and of course, he has plenty of ideas. Good ones.
All right. So we got this outline. How do you guys want to do it? Do you want to just ask questions and kind of go down it, or do you want me to just have the floor for a little bit? Or?
What are we listing?
Why don't you take the floor for a little bit? Because
we'll
a lot happened this year, in with respect to news, recovery in the news, and so forth. And you made a nice list of the top stories and headlines of 2021, and maybe we should take a look at some of those and kind of talk through what we feel about what happened.
So I'll just go, and you two jump in and interrupt.
Oh, don't worry, we will.
All right.
We're good at that.
So I would say the first two are kind of alliterative headlines. Sacklers suck and fuck fentanyl. So, one of the big stories is the opioid litigation, and there's lots of litigation going on against the pharmacies, against Johnson & Johnson, McKinsey, the consulting firm that helped Purdue But the one that everybody's really watching is the Purdue and then the Sacklers bankruptcy deal, which we thought was kind of wrapped up with the Purdue or the Sacklers saying we're giving up ownership, we're going to pay $4.5 billion and be shielded from further civil lawsuits. So that was just tossed out this week.
Yeah, I saw that the court rejected that. Shoot.
Yeah, so the some of the states objected, and then I'm not totally up to speed because it's a new development, but it looks like another bankruptcy federal judge said that this, I don't know, I'm not going to go into legal terms, non-debt or something, but this release wasn't kosher, and so parties go back and look at this again, and it's 2 years in the making probably, this settlement, but they have to go back to the table and see if they can work something out. So in the meantime, all the litigation is on hold.
Yeah,
against Purdue. Yeah,
I mean, all the litigation is going to be on hold because of the bankruptcy stay, and to see if they can kind of hash out a deal. But it's noteworthy what's not being considered in this deal. I guess bankruptcy is really, it's a civil matter, but I'd like to know how the Sacklers have sort of eluded criminal prosecution, and why no one's talking about throwing any of them in prison. But the fact that they get to walk away with billions of dollars, and I don't expect that when they finally dot the I's and cross the T's on whatever plans finally endorsed by the court, that the Sacklers are going to go away poor. Because that doesn't happen in America, right? I mean, they're going to walk away with money made off the backs of all the misery they caused.
So more news from the Sacklers.
Yeah,
it's like the story that never ends. Until they execute.
Right. Bankruptcies, it's civil, and so nothing in that original deal that just fell through would have shielded them from criminal prosecution. But
but who's indicting? Where are the indictments?
Yeah.
Where's Merrick Garland's Justice Department drawing up charges against the Sackler family? Considering that and not to get overly political, because everybody takes money from the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes,
but,
they do.
If you take a look at who takes the most money from the pharmaceutical industry, I think you look at some blue donkeys.
Yeah, a famous radio show host that I used to listen to actually said something that I always remembered, and he was describing, the corruption in politics, and he said, Washington and politicians are, basically shaped by lobbyists. So what is a lobbyist? A lobbyist is a bribe giver. Mm-hmm. So what does that make politicians? They are bribe takers, and therefore our government is run by bribe takers.
Well, never forget, it was Chris Dodd, the Democratic senator from Connecticut, who signed off on the OxyContin FDA approval in the first place, right?
Yeah, it's just, So that's the Sacklers. That's always a big story. It was in everything. The Dope Sick movie. I mean, the story that really got my attention, and it continues to, is the fentanyl's contribution to the 100,000 OD deaths during the first year of this pandemic.
Yeah, that's something. So you're moving ahead on the.
We're moving to fuck fentanyl.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk all show about the Sacklers.
Yeah, but, that is incredible when you think about it. 100,000. Yeah, we've lost more from COVID, but a 30% increase in 1 year. Mm-hmm. So if you look at homicide, or if you look at cost of housing or something, that's pretty significant. And I guess people are talking about it, but maybe it just feels like it to us because we're paying attention to that news. But it's huge. And so much of it is attributed to fentanyl, which is snuck into much of the supply. And I think one of the kind of things that I'm watching and I worry is that, we sort of have this narrative with the opioid epidemic of, shifting blame a little bit from, the typical story is the kid who has a sports injury, gets on opioids, and then gets cut off from the medical supply, goes to heroin and overdoses. And that's pretty sympathetic. And so a lot of the blame has shifted to the supplier. But now with fentanyl in the mix and sort of this there's a real fear because it's really killing people. But then there's also these kind of unfounded fears that just contact with fentanyl is going to, there were 2 San Diego police officers who said that they OD'd because of it, but, others have opined that it was probably a panic attack and you can't really ingest fentanyl through skin contact. And then now there's lots of calls from prosecutors around the country, and Colorado just introduced legislation that will be considered in 2022 to, really crack down on fentanyl and bring murder charges to dealers. And, I've heard you support that, Mike, and I get it. We're outraged, but, I just worry about swinging the pendulum away from the, let's look at addiction as a medical and a disorder that needs to be treated with care, rather than, and I get it, we're attacking dealers, but it seems like a tough on crime move that is kind of going in the opposite direction.
It reminds me, Grant, of the Venezuelan government. I think it was Duterte. Am I thinking of the right guy?
Philippines.
The Philippines, where they murder, just straight up execute people accused of being drug dealers. I mean, maybe that's where the logical conclusion of that thought process is, but we like to think that we're a little more.
I think that's the users too in Philippines. So here, I think we're talking about the dealers for now. But yeah, I don't think we're going that direction. But,
well, I think.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling on that is this. I mean, you have to, if you're going to bring something like that to bear, and I think there's a space for law enforcement in this discussion, you have to be extremely careful how you apply that law enforcement power, right? So if you're talking about a street dealer or somebody who is an addict who is dealing fentanyl to support their own habit, you can draw a distinction between that and a fentanyl guy in Mexico who is pumping this stuff out in a factory and sending it to the United States. Your point is well taken, because the federal and the state governments are not known for using law enforcement strategies as a scalpel, more like a sledgehammer, right? So the problem is you're going to catch up all of the small time dealers who are perhaps only dealing to support their own habits and charging them with murder in cases where it's clearly not warranted.
And I wonder, too, if the small dealers even know that they're dealing fentanyl. Like, how far down the supply chain before somebody knows what's in the product?
Right. But that takes it, Grant, I know you listen to Joe Schrank on Rehab Confidential, and if you do, his views on it are the safe supply thing, where if it was regulated in the way that alcohol is, and he makes great comparisons to prohibition and how people were dying from the bathtub gin type stuff, moonshine. Once we, of course, alcohol is a scourge on our society, but he's saying that if there was
we know what's in it.
Right. So, I mean, what do you think about the safe supply thing? I know we're getting in the weeds here, but
the Dr. Carl Hart,
he takes
approach.
That was part of his thesis, but I'm always interested in that because it could work in a way.
Yeah, I'm for fewer people dying.
Right.
Let's say that. However we get there. And it's really hard. People give out these fentanyl test strips, but because it's so potent, you can, apparently, I don't know, but you can put the test strip in one part of the supply and not catch the few molecules that are sitting in the other part. So it's spotty to give the users a test strip and hope that you got it. So I don't know if we'll ever move to the direction of safe supply.
Well, this year,
I'm just going to say that, if you look at the example of prohibition, you could look at that in a couple of different ways, right? Alcohol still kills 100,000 people a year and has for every year in this country. So you're already dealing with but prohibition was effective at reducing the number of alcoholics and people who suffer from alcohol use disorder, because when you restrict the supply,
liver disease went down.
Yeah, when you restrict the supply, you restrict the number of people who have access, and when you restrict the number of people who have access, you have less alcohol-related issues. So, I mean,
well, harm reduction is actually a big thing that was moving forward in 2021. So it's like on the next on our list. It actually is a good segue.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of positive developments in harm reduction this year, and you've got some here.
Yeah, I think some of them, some of the marquee ones are the overdose prevention programs, also called safe injection sites, where you have a place where people can bring their own supply and use in the care or watchful eye of medical professionals, and have, they could get referrals to treatment there. Pretty controversial because people see it as enabling, but so Rhode Island passed a bill this year that would allow for that. It still has to, they've got to develop regulations for it and get counties and local jurisdictions to agree to it. Philadelphia has set up a site, but I think that's tied up in federal court. California had a bill, Senator Scott Wiener here, who's really been an advocate for a lot of harm reduction measures. But that bill got held up in the Assembly, even though it passed the Senate. And then New York City, as you know, went ahead and did it. And I think there may be two kind of Harlem-y area.
Yeah, one's in Washington Heights,
I
and
think,
one's in Harlem.
And I think de Blasio's gamble is probably that Biden's administration is talking about harm reduction. So let's see if the federal government actually moves to shut them down. So it'll be interesting to see. So at least, the conversation's moving forward, that maybe there are ways to keep people from dying. And then the other thing that I keep seeing in the news is more stories about how to spread naloxone, or the name brand Narcan, the overdose medication that you can give to somebody to immediately stop an overdose and get them breathing. And libraries across the country, I even read about one in Utah. They're starting to stock it. California had some laws for public universities and community colleges would stock it. Treatment centers need to have it. So, and then the Oregon ballot initiative that you talked about on one episode to decriminalize and have a lot more services for treatment. So, and between all of that and the Biden administration at least giving a nod toward harm reduction as a direction they'd like to go, I think that's positive and that's different.
You'd think that with Hunter Biden being his son and being vocal in addiction, that he should be more sensitive to it.
Yeah, you would think, but
Joe Biden's got to listen to a lot of people in the job he's got. Yeah. So his son is just one voice among many. But yes, I've heard that Joe Schrank make that very point.
It's noteworthy that the program in New York City, the safe injection site, has now reversed 56 ODs since they've been open. They've been open about a month and a half. So that's 56 people who are alive who would not otherwise be alive.
That's something.
Yeah, it is something, and those, you need more of that, and I'm not sure why people are so opposed to it in general, because it's very hard to get these. I mean, Philadelphia, where I recently was, there are awful lot of people nodding out on the streets of Philadelphia. I saw them with my own eyes over the last couple of days, and I don't know. It seems just like the compassionate thing to do.
Yeah, citing them is a hard sell, probably.
Right.
There's a NIMBY issue too, and we've seen that with needle exchanges. Here in California, we had a law this year that exempted needle exchanges from what we call our California Environmental Quality Act, which is often used to stop developments that people don't like. And there's an exemption for needle exchanges now, and so that shut down recently a lawsuit in Santa Cruz. A needle exchange can go forward there. So, I think we'd have the same issue with safe injection sites. But
well, let's hope the opinion coalesces around this as a positive rather than as a negative. But
yeah, I have to think if we can get the message that fewer people dying is a good thing.
Well,
it seems like a message that should work.
It would seem like that would be a way to sell it, but there are an awful lot of people in this country who don't care whether addicts die or not.
Yeah,
and I think that's the main problem. How do you get people to overcome their internal stigma and think like these people who are shooting up heroin or using heroin should just die anyway.
Yeah, that's
there's not. I don't know. It's
well, that's part of like,
or you get. You get.
I was gonna say that's
I was
part,
going to
part
say
of.
there's a New York.
Sorry, damn
Right.
it. All right, ready, Grant, go.
Okay. Or you get the former heroin user who there was an op-ed. I want to say it was in the Daily or the Post or something by a guy who's total abstinence, and his argument as a former user was that that's not helpful. It's just enabling. I thought, well, him of all people, can't you see the benefit of saving lives?
Well, he survived though, right? So it's not
exactly. So he did it. Everybody should do it his way.
So now that we're heading into the new year, maybe we should talk about the sober curious movement.
What is that? The sober curious. I don't know if I like that term. I don't know. Ever since I heard that, I'm like, oh, it feels. I don't know. It's sober curious, but it's big, right, Grant?
I think so, and I think there was what was her name? Ruby Warrington, a British author who had a book called Sober Curious, probably 2015 or so. But I would put a lot of people in that camp, and it's basically the Annie Grace quote of, you don't need to hit rock bottom. It's just if you're questioning your relationship with alcohol, that's okay, and you can change it, or alcohol or other substances. And I would put Paul Churchill's Recovery Elevator, and numerous kind of movements out there. We Are the Luckiest, Laura McEwen, the
Great
author,
book.
and then Holly. But yeah, no, that is a good book. So it's all these people, and I think there's a lot of millennials too saying, maybe it's we don't want to be like that other generation, and people questioning their relationship with alcohol and not saying you don't have to define yourself as an alcoholic, and so I think it's great if people have sort of permission, within their friend group, within society, to say, you know what, I'm going to choose a different path.
Yeah,
and
it's
now
so
we're
great.
seeing, it seems like the push for Dry January, which I believe started in the UK, and Sober October. I've always thought Dry in July should have some traction.
It has to rhyme.
And,
it's got to rhyme, or it doesn't count.
It could be alliterative too,
Right?
But I can't think of one off the top of my head. It's got to have a catch. But I think Sober October is great. Yeah, Dry January, I'm not sure.
Well, that's why November is so bad for addicts. It doesn't rhyme with anything.
I can't remember November.
I can't remember November. I mean, that just sounds like an Alzheimer's awareness month.
Well, but it's really interesting that the market for craft non-alcoholic beers has really exploded the last couple of years. The major beer companies like the InBevs and everything are, somehow or other I get all these ads in my Facebook feed.
Yeah, why do I keep getting these penis pill ads? I don't understand. What do they know?
But I got one for alcohol-free Budweiser. And I was thinking, geez, isn't that stuff alcohol-free already?
Wow.
But it was...
didn't like the original version. Yeah.
Just shit.
But if Budweiser's putting it out there, and not only that, but they're putting some marketing muscle behind it, they must see that as a expanding market and a way to make money.
Well, yeah, sober is the new black, as you know. Celebrities are even more out. You never heard that one?
I thought sober was the new high.
It's the new high, right? And you're hearing a lot more celebrities coming out about it. And I think one of the things that I was noticing, like people like Erin Carr, who can't remember the name of her book, but she's an advice columnist and an addiction expert. She goes on Dopey sometimes. But someone like her, who's kind of on a pedestal as a recovery expert type of person, same thing with Joe Schrank type and Amy Dresner and those people, they're very much like, yes, we love AA, we do AA, but listen, that ain't it. That's one tool in your tool belt. And just being more open about yeah, but that's not all I do. Where in the past you would be excoriated in the community for speaking out against it and saying there's something else out there.
Well, what's interesting to me is that there is a tension between the youth not drinking movement, or the kids who are like, I don't want to drink alcohol, so I'm going to drink these mocktails, I'm going to drink these herbal things, I'm going to drink these non-alcoholic beers. And then if they're questioning their relationship with alcohol and they're drinking that non-alcoholic beers and they walk into an AA meeting and somebody's wagging their finger at them saying, no, non-alcoholic beers for non-alcoholics, that kind of thing, that's going to turn them off because they're not seeing addiction the same way because they're not waiting until they hit rock bottom before they start questioning their relationship with alcohol. No, nor should they.
I just worry that same generation is going to be a little too blasé about the potential dangers of marijuana. I think that's getting
a good point.
I mean, I'm not against marijuana, even in recovery, but I worry that it's being portrayed as too harmless. Do you know what I mean? Like in general, like, oh, it's just weed, kids can do. And I don't know, Grant, like, am I totally off base on that?
No, I have mixed feelings, because it's much less harmful than other things. There are studies out, and I've captured some in the news clips that I do that talk about the potential for psychotic episodes related to using pot, especially for younger kids. And there's, but at the same time, there's a whole green recovery movement out there. People who are abstinent from alcohol or the other substances they use who maintain with weed. And, if that works for somebody, that's fine. You were just talking about kind of being less prescriptive. Erin Carr, by the way, her book is Strung Out.
Right,
really
right.
good.
Yeah, I've read that a couple times. I love it.
But I always picture the recovery thing. Like, I go to AA meetings. Don't love a lot about it, but it's been super helpful, and I think it kind of saved me. And I go once a week, but I always talk about the recovery buffet. Go, keep going back. Doesn't matter what you choose. Just choose some stuff. Careful of the sushi, and keep going back. The other day on Dopey Facebook page, I heard somebody say basically the same thing, but instead of the buffet, they said, "I'm a sobriety slut." And so, I would, there is this in the counseling business, there's the term, meet them where they're at. So if somebody isn't willing to go total abstinence, okay. Maybe they're doing something to reduce their harm, and maybe it's smoking marijuana. But, we who think there's a better way, abstinence, we can certainly try and show people a path to, meet them where they're at and try and take them along.
Can I just talk about this dry January, sober October thing for one more second? Do you think that that's a good idea? Because I saw an ad when I was in Philadelphia, and it was a billboard, and it was advertising. It was advertising dry January, and the tagline for the ad was, "It's not forever; it's only for 30 days." And I know a lot of people who not a lot of people, a few people who I would think perhaps should be reevaluating their relationship with alcohol, who every year they do a dry January or they do a sober October, and at the end they're like, well, did that, I guess I don't have a problem. Boom, right back to where they were 30 days before. But the fact that they think that they can pull it off for 30 days makes them think that they don't have a problem, and it's not something they need to take a look at. So that's the flip side to me of this sober October business, or dry January. But
okay, but let's talk that through. If so, maybe that person decides, oh, I can do it, so I definitely don't have a problem. Well, you lost them, but what if there's a couple other people who say, you know what, I kind of felt better.
Yeah.
And they plant that seed, and a couple of years down the line, they think, you know what, I've done it before, and I did feel better. Time to seek some extra help. So I don't know. Who am I to judge? But
right.
Yeah, definitely all of us who've had a history of relapse know that feeling of, oh, I got this. I did it for a couple weeks. I've done a reset. Now I'm good. The addiction gone. It doesn't work. So
I just thought it really.
I think it's a good thing.
It gets them in the door.
Overall, probably on balance, yes. I just thought it was very weird, and I wish I had paid a little more attention to who exactly was advertising. Because
that's the question.
Is that like some kind of? Is it like a non-alcoholic drink company? Like, who would advertise like that? It's not forever. It's only for 30 days.
Could be like one of these associations or a non-for-profit that is trying to put out a good message.
Yeah, maybe
Am I
so.
being too Pollyanna to believe that could happen?
What did Maria Zalovitz say how long it takes to or not Zalovitz? Who is the the other book that we read, the woman, the dopamine.
Dopamine, Anna Lemke's Dopamine
Anna
Station.
Lemke, right. She said it takes 90 days for your brain to start to rewire itself, right? So maybe we should have like dry quarters.
Yeah.
Like, business, split the year up into the business financial quarters.
What do we rhyme with quarter? You can't. So it can't be done.
But 30 days just doesn't seem like enough to change a habit.
And it's, when we see that in the rehab industry, right? Yeah. I mean, it used to be 30 days in rehab, right?
But that's what insurance covers.
Insurance covers less.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, when I was in inpatient rehab, I had the best insurance too, because my wife's a teacher on Long Island. But even my insurance, they have whole departments at rehabs that every, I think, day or week they check with the insurance carrier who's paying for it. Mm-hmm. And if they're saying, nope, they've had enough. So really the insurance carriers are deciding how much rehab is enough.
Right.
Which is fucking insane.
Well, I mean, you also have to take a look at the statistics for rehab in general.
Well, maybe they should stay longer. Maybe 90 days. Right. And they do have 90-day rehabs, but I would never agree to that. And luckily, I was not compelled. But that might have done the trick. Who knows? Maybe it could have done it.
Yeah.
I know I needed self-binding.
Yeah, self-binding.
And that's my breathalyzer thing that I'm still doing today. I think that, good solid time of whether it's taking you out of your environment or giving you something like that tool that I have, the breathalyzer, to, give you a hard stop and to give you time to rewire those pathways. I think that's important.
Self-binding. Now, I don't have the outline that Grant so meticulously drew up, so I feel like I'm just out of order here. So what is,
okay,
so I'm going to need you to lead it a little.
One of the other stories, stigma, we always talk about the harm of stigma. It keeps us from seeking help. I do think to some extent that story of the person moving from prescription opioids to heroin has sort of changed the narrative somewhat, but clearly there's stigma out there, and Shatterproof, the organization that aims to increase access to evidence-based treatment for people and reduce stigma through education. They just did what they're calling their annual stigma index, and they did the first one as a baseline to see year over year, are we moving the needle and changing the way that people view people who struggle with addiction and who are in recovery. And a couple of the things, I don't have all the bullet points in front of me, but about half or 45% of the people surveyed said they would not want someone in recovery from a substance use disorder as a close friend or to marry into their family.
Wow.
And more than half of the public would be unwilling to have a person in recovery as their supervisor at work. And that one hits home for me.
Wow.
Because I supervise people at work, and just, got to keep that on the down low.
Yeah.
But I think there's, I was a long-term graduate student in sociology, and I studied deviance. And, stigma also has some social influences. It kind of helped me, stigma is there because it's society's way of driving people in the right direction, and keeping them from harming themselves and others. And there's a reason that some of the activities of addiction are stigmatized, stealing, risky things, and to some extent that helped me, but I think there's a difference between stigma that's attached to the person, like the moral failing or weak will, versus stigma that's attached to the behavior.
Yeah.
One can be productive and one's not. And
part of it's the anonymity thing that gets touched on a lot in Anonymous People. It was the first time I started thinking about that, and how, look, anonymity is great, especially with just what we talked about. And maybe because of anonymity, 12-step programs are able to flourish because people knew that they could come to a place and, have this sort of protection. But the downside is that there's no face to recovery, really. I mean, there's starting to be now. But part of breaking that stigma is people like us doing shows like this and, coming out to our friends and family and showing them like, no, I'm a regular person. I'm healed. I'm moving forward. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. The word addict or alcoholic doesn't have to be a life sentence, and we need to show people that. And the only way to do that is to break anonymity. I think.
Yep.
And that's
I you're right. Anonymity has a place, gives people cover, and then, but there's, I think we won't break the stigma until people show recovery is possible, and I'm recovering out loud. Did you use my last name in the show notes? Or
we
in
did.
The intro? You're
yes.
welcome to. All right.
Absolutely. Okay. Grant Boyken, the editor-at-large of the RMA newsroom. And Grant, I know you actually have like a meeting or a class or something coming up. So I wondered if you wanted to run down. You picked out, and I thought this was a great idea.
Well, yeah.
The movies and books.
Really quickly.
Yeah.
As you talked about recovering out loud, it made me remember celebrities in the news.
Yes.
When I first started putting together news clips, I thought, maybe these are kind of fluff. I shouldn't include them. But I've come to the realization that it's important to have the celebrity stories out there.
Yeah.
Because it sort of normalizes addiction, because we see it even happening to successful people. They have a platform to educate. And,
yeah,
so
totally.
I do include those. And I mean, the downside is if you're in the limelight and you relapse, like has happened to Ben Affleck, then, I can't imagine going through recovery in public. But, a few of those stories this year, Sha'Carri Richardson, the Olympic runner who was kicked out of the Olympics for being positive for THC. I can't imagine anyone would argue is performance enhancing. And then, and Demi Lovato was a big story too, because she raised the question about what is recovery, because she was a proponent of what some call California sober, which is, for her, it was mixing moderate alcohol with, or I don't know if it's moderate, but alcohol and marijuana as part of her recovery. She's now said, no, abstinent recovery is the only way for her.
I think she got a lot of blowback for that, didn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, not just from the recovery community.
Yeah, for the California sober stance.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no, she definitely did. And that's another type of stigma that I don't think we look at. Stigma within the recovery community.
Yep.
Do it my way. No, do it my way.
Yeah.
It's interesting when I do think we should, everyone has to define it for themselves to some extent.
Right. Yeah, that gets
But anyway, you wanted me to, I do have a work meeting, but it is not until 45 minutes, but I take that as my cue. But you want me to run through some of the stories that I highlighted?
Yeah, sure. I thought you had, it was funny because I just sort of asked Grant, like as an aside, like, what do you think about the year? And man, he just spit out like all this great stuff. I'm like, holy shit.
He's definitely got some thoughts.
Because I want to be like, yes, Grant, do the whole show, man. But like, I thought it was, move forward
right,
however you're feeling.
I'll do a quick ramble, and you guys can jump in if you want to. So one of the things I do in the news clips is try and find stories on recent research. There's some stuff out there, a steady stream of studies on the health effects of alcohol, not positive, it's all negative. A lot of promising research out there about the use of hallucinogens, hallucinogenic drugs to treat depression and addiction. I think that's interesting. And it's not just out there, it's respectable research institutions. And also, among younger people, college and teens, alcohol use has actually fallen during the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Books, we already talked about Annie Lemke's Dopamine Nation and Maya Salovitz. Salovitz, you don't pronounce the Z. It's an Hungarian name, and SC is one letter. So,
right, like
in case you have her on the show.
Like saliva.
Like Sally.
Sally.
Or saliva.
Just
okay.
quickly touch.
She's got a book.
I'm sorry. I just want to just back up a little bit on that National Institute of Drug Abuse study where you found that college kids were drinking less. They are smoking more weed, though. Are they not?
Yeah. So it was, 38% in 2015 reported smoking weed, and 44%. So up 38 to 44% between 2015 and 2020. So that did increase. But among teenagers, another study found, so younger than college age, marijuana use and alcohol fell between, at least this was a 1 year different study, but 2020 to 2021.
So that's despite the fact that
kids are all right.
It's despite the fact that there's more access to weed available to these kids because of the greater number of jurisdictions that are legalizing it.
Yeah, and I heard that...
I mean, they're underage, but that certainly increases access.
I heard that sales of Doritos at student unions across the country are up 150%. Is that true? Did you find that in your research?
So if you want to invest in the marijuana industry, your best bet is to open a pizzeria, not sell weed. You make more money selling pizza.
Yeah.
Bring back the dollar value menu at Taco Bell.
Yes.
All right. So a few other things. Movies, TV shows. Dope Sick made a big splash. Everyone should watch that because
loved it.
It's well done. It's Michael Keaton, but it's just powerful, and the marketing power that Purdue and the Sackler family had. There's a movie called Body Brokers that talks about fraud in marketing and in attracting clients.
Great film.
Rehab industry focused on Southern California. Well, that has gotten some traction. The DOJ has now named Southern California as the rehab fraud capital of the world. We've overtaken Florida in that respect, and so stay tuned to that. There were some California bills to address that last year. I think there'll be more this year. And there was a little movie, a documentary called Jacinta, which I don't think it got a lot of press, but I really liked it. It was about a young woman in Portland, Maine, trying to stay clean after prison, and
it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, have you seen it?
Yes,
yeah,
I did.
So, it just shows the grip of addiction. Her consequences were losing her child, and even then it was so hard, and it was this multi-generational look, because I won't give it away, but her mom used and put her in risky situations, and so kind of depressing to watch, but I thought a good one for people who want to understand on the ground what addiction's like. Let's see.
Oh, Life of Crime was a big one too.
I haven't seen that. That's
it's so good.
Ongoing documentary that started late 70s, early 80s.
Grant, you got to watch that. You got to watch it. It's so good.
It sounds depressing.
Yeah. Well, it's
so many of them are.
It is, of course, but it's depressing in the same way that when we look at life in general, like birth, death, like it covers their entire existence, and how addiction and crime and poverty and family dynamics. I mean, it just gives you this bird's eye view, and it's it is sad, but for me, it was more like oh, wow. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's very, really an accomplishment, that documentary.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to watch it. I started about the first 5 minutes, and then I hate to admit it, I'm on to Fear of the Walking Dead right now.
It's all right.
That's a good show.
Yeah.
That was my pandemic thing, was turning to Walking Dead, which I've never seen. I don't know. It just seemed fitting when the pandemic. What else? Looking ahead this year, there's another, we always talk about Carl Hart from Columbia University. There's another Carl in the psychiatry program there, Carl Eric Fisher, who's got a podcast, and he's writing a book called The Urge. It's on the history of addiction, so sort of sweeping for somebody whose profession is psychiatry. I'm looking forward to it because the guests he gets on his podcast are good and from a wide range.
Really? I should check that out.
Yeah. And then, opioid litigation, I think we'll be paying attention to that and how the money is used from all the various settlements, by the states, how they put that to use.
We'll see.
Then, I do have a long list that I just kind of gave you guys of some of the big stories, a lot of the op-eds and the kind of long-form journalism. It seems like too much to go over here. Do you want to put some in the notes? Or if you want to, I don't know if you have a list. Do you want me to, how much time do we have? Because it sounded like you were about to say, this segment's done.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I was thinking, man, I don't want Grant's producer to come on the phone and be like, he's got to go. Let's go over that, what do you got?
All right, I'll go from recent to past. So Maya Salovitz, she's featured a lot this year. So she had this piece earlier this month, Opioids Feel Like Love.
Yeah.
It was powerful, and the subtitle is That's Why They're Deadly in Tough Times. read it if you want to understand opioids and what it feels like. I once heard on a Dopey interview, I forget the guest, but somebody saying felt like heroin was like a warm blanket, the warmest blanket on the coldest night. That fits with descriptions that I've heard.
That's accurate. It's accurate.
Yeah. I don't have that experience. Let's see. She's got another piece in Filter magazine from November on harm reduction, how key early ideas help shape today's harm reduction. And then I included an NPR story from November, but you can find numerous headlines on this. Drug overdose deaths in the U.S. had topped 100,000 for the first time. We talked about that. I have the link to the press release from Shatterproof on their Stigma index. Oh, I've got one here. Progress, if not perfection. Sober Linings Playbook end of the year summary of 2021 California substance use disorder led proposals. Yeah, so I did a summary of legislative proposals in California. And this year I'm going to do more of an interactive, like monthly, here's what's going on and here's how things have been amended or changed. So more of interest for people in and around the Capitol here in California, but I'm excited about it. Paris Hilton had a bunch of stories, but she had an op-ed in the Washington Post when she came to testify at Congress about the troubled teen industry that needs reform, and you guys talked about that when you had Aaron on the show recently. Let's see. Now, there was a piece you actually featured, Mike, in Recovery in the News about liver transplants. It was an NPR piece from New York.
That was a good one.
How they figure out the waiting list, and that there's this 6-month rule for alcoholics, which during that period somebody could die, or they could become abstinent, and sort of how they're thinking around prioritizing liver transplants.
Yeah, it's a coin flip. Either they die or they get abstinent. Flipping coins for addicts. Yeah,
sort of reminds me of Salem witch trials. If they sink,
right?
Yeah,
the water accepted them, and they were not witch. Let's see. There's a piece in CNN, an op-ed from TV chef Andrew Zimmern, and it was sort of a thank you note to his sobriety Sherpa, is what he calls him.
Yeah, I read that when it came out. Very impressive, and it's interesting when you watch his show juxtaposed with Anthony Bourdain's, because they were kind of around at the same time, but Zimmern was not drinking his way through all the countries that he went to. I didn't even realize he was in recovery, but alcohol was such like a negligible part of the show.
And you saw Anthony Bourdain's just love affair with alcohol and food and how it went together. And also,
I love Tony, though.
Yeah.
The best. But
I loved those shows. When he died, it was hard. And he was an addict former addict, I think. Wasn't he addicted to heroin?
Anthony Bourdain was an opiate addict, and
then continued to drink, though.
Right.
And he also suffered from depression, obviously, and
But the Zimmern article, if you guys can find it, it's a great read, and he's actually a really interesting guy. He's somebody that after I read that, I was like, I wonder if we could get him on the show, because
maybe
it'd be really interesting to talk to.
Did he do Dopey at some point?
Did he? Interesting.
I feel like he was on at some point.
He was on a podcast, Elizabeth Vargas, the TV, I forget what network she's with, but she's got a podcast called Heart of the Matter, and he was on that at some point this year. So, yes, I love reaching out to famous people and saying, you don't know me from Adam, but, so if you want, stick me on him.
Go for it. If you can get Zimmern, man, that would be fantastic.
Hey, I actually I know you might have more stuff, but I wanted to talk to you on the show about some of your plans and how our podcast and your efforts are going to work together. It's sort of, what's coming next year. So I don't know if you're ready to discuss all of that, but I did want to get to that before you moved on.
All right, real quick. I don't want to talk a whole lot because I don't know where it's going, but I quit a paying side gig to spend more time on my unpaid side gig. So
Right on.
Playbook. But I am going to do a couple of extra things. One of them is to, like I said, keep track more closely and more real time of California legislation. I think that could be helpful for people here in Sacramento where I am. But the other thing, just because I think it'll be fun to do, is arrange half-hour phone calls with experts, authors, policymakers in the world of addiction and recovery. Talk to them and then do short pieces on a blog that I only have one entry on right now. And so do these little interview pieces. And I'm happy when I reach out to people to say, hey, I know this podcast, but they'd be happy to have you too. I don't want to overstep, so I'll talk to you ahead of time. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. And without permission, I've co-branded my newsletter with the news clips with Sober Linings Playbook.
I think it sounds like such a great idea.
When you do these things because you like the content, and then all of a sudden you start looking at numbers and thinking, how could I get more?
Right.
Twitter. I need a Twitter presence. And I don't know.
Yeah, I've been angling behind the scenes in my own mind. Ever since you started helping us out with the news and stuff, I'm like, man, we got to get like a segment or, do something, because you've got such a wide breadth of knowledge that you have access to and then your level of interest. And it's really great. And it's coming out right now in your year review that you were able to just spit out, And I think
the man needs his own podcast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to...
No, that sounds like a ton of work.
I know. It's like giving somebody a puppy,
Yeah.
It's like, it seems really nice at first, and then it's a nightmare because, it's a puppy. But I think, the future is bright for SoberLiningsPlaybook.com and RMA. Happy to co-brand, and I don't know, whatever you want to do. Like, we're a team here, you know what I mean? And it's
all right. Well, we'll
awesome.
Think about it. Maybe we'll have at our next quarterly meeting. We'll set our strategic plan and go from there. But
absolutely,
hey, happy New Year's to you and to all the Monksters. I should probably take off and get ready for the day of work.
Well, thanks, Grant, for coming on and sharing your reflections on 2021, and good luck to whatever 2022 brings.
Thank you, and thanks the two of you for all you do. It's been it's really made my 2021 to steer your Facebook community and this podcast. So,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Right.
You can find Grant at SoberLiningsPlaybook.com. You can get him on the Recovery in the Middle Ages Patreon Discord group and the private Facebook group. And we lost him. So
there he goes.
I think that was a pro move. He probably, he knows that when we start doing that, he's supposed to cut out.
He can go.
He knows what he's doing. So thank you so much for that, Grant. Happy New Year.
We're so lucky that he
chose
dropped
us.
into our existence.
He chose us.
Fantastic.
Yeah, his website's been mentioned on such podcasts as Rehab Confidential.
Oh yeah.
So he's out there. People are seeing it. We see it, and love to have Grant G Money Smooth helping out with the show. I would like to take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, this is a teaser. You ready?
I'm ready.
When we come back, we have Monkster New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
And we have our vision for 2022 a little bit, recovery in the news, and Week in Weird if we want to get to it.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
It's, Okay. So we'll be back right after these words. And we're back.
Hi. Wow, Grant knocks it out of the park, man.
Yeah, that was a good, healthy dose of reflection. And news analysis.
In 2022, we are going to get Grant a decent sound on his end. He needs to be like on a mic and on Zencastr.
We can do this on Zencastr.
Yeah, but we just haven't had time to work it out because we just had the vacation. But we will work out our guest sound will be better. I promise.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit upside down and backwards as far as the outline's concerned, which...
Oh, no.
I know. I don't like that.
Are you going to be all right?
Well, we'll see, because before Grant, I wanted to do our New Year's resolutions, but...
New Year's resolutions.
We're going back, yes. I know. Because I got the Monksters to reach out and give us some. Firstly, though, I thought you and I could talk about our goals.
Great.
Right?
This is going to be fast from my angle.
We're going to do it quick. Okay.
Okay.
I have some New Year's goals. Listen, a lot is changing in my life, and the only thing one can count on is change. Things are in flux, or it's very fluid, or it's mercurial, or however you want to.
Shit happens.
Shit happens.
And it happens all at once sometimes.
Yes, it does. Sometimes it's explosive.
You're having an explosive diarrhea of a year.
You know,
with a more positive cast, perhaps.
So much has happened this year with this podcast. It has grown so much, and it has become something.
It's alive.
It's alive. It's, it's feeding off of the Monksters energy. And at the same time, the business I've been in professionally for the last 4 years is coming to an end. My time in retail is over. I am closing the shop that I've put everything into. I've now left it all in the field. And then moving on, but the question becomes, what the hell am I going to do with myself?
Right.
And this is a big question for me, 2022. And for so long, I've been unable to sort of crystallize in my mind where I want to take this thing. But things just sort of kind of materialize. They have a way of working themselves out. And what I've decided is I really want to be in some kind of profession where I'm helping people. Basically doing what I try to do all the time, but maybe even being able to pay my bills with it.
Wow.
So one way I'm going to go is I am going to get a recovery coaching or peer counselor certificate of some kind.
Okay.
Whether it be CCAR, which is New York State, actually it's national certification, or a CASAC, which is the really hard to get New York State certification.
Yeah, did you look at the requirements for that thing?
It's daunting.
Crazy.
It's daunting.
Yeah.
But either that, and I was going to do that, plus I'm going to enroll in a master's in social work degree.
Really?
Now, that can work in so many different ways for me because I've basically been offered a full-time position at this medical billing company as an HR kind of director, manager type of person, running payroll, being there for the people, the employees, helping them, get vacation, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's going to require me developing their whole system because it's a growing company. And you're going
to be a busy man this year.
Yeah. And at least I'll be able to pay my electric bill with that, or, which would be nice. But it'll also take up a lot of my time.
Sure.
Time that would be better spent working on this podcast, which is really my passion in life, doing this. It gives me so much joy, and I love doing it. I love studying recovery. I love being introspective and learning about myself and how I can get better. And so, besides figuring all that out, which maybe even smart recovery certificate. Yeah. In fact, Mike and I were thinking of doing it together.
I think we should do it, and I think we should maybe start a smart recovery meeting group here in the land in which we live. So we can provide people with an alternative.
I think that would be something that would be super, super fun. And
I think it would be great. I was looking into the CIS-AC. I didn't look at the CCAR.
It's a lot less. It is New York. There is a New York State program to get certified in it. It's like a 4-day program. Sometimes pre-pandemic, it was you go away for 4 days and do it and come back. I think probably there's video internet ways to do it.
Yeah, but when you're in 12-step or AA, there's a lot of more opportunities to go and visit, hospitals or mental asylums or wherever to spread the recovery message.
Yeah.
When you're not involved with 12-step, it's you kind of have to find different avenues, right? I mean, this podcast is one avenue,
right? But you're just a podcast host. I mean, how far does that get you?
Yeah, right. You're not making the human connection, or are you? I mean, you can make a human connection over the internet.
Well, that's what we're doing on the Patreon, Discord, and on the Facebook group. Right. I feel like I'm connecting with more people in recovery than I ever have before, and it helps me. Like I've said this before, but when you guys write me off, thanks for just like answering me. I'm like, dude, this is helping me.
Right.
I'm getting a lot out of this too.
But it might be nice to have like a smart recovery group where people come in person and sit and talk, and we have that community on a more community level.
So that's one of our goals.
I'd be into doing that.
That's one of our goals. I want to get back to the gym. I want to keep growing the Monkster community and getting to know you guys. And I really feel like I'm just making new friends, people I actually like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got some, we've been having a lot of fun, and I want to keep recovery top of mind. What about you, Mike?
I want to do a lot less recovery-related activities this
Interesting.
year. No.
I will pick up the slack. Don't worry.
No, I'm being a little facetious. I mean, obviously this is important to me. The podcast is important to me. All of you folks are important to me. But I also feel like you have to be a well-rounded person, and you have to develop interests that are outside the recovery sphere. And something that Joseph Naus, when he came on, said about mastery and the fact that you should find something that you can achieve mastery in. And for him, it was golf, right? So I want to start heading down that same road with photography. I want to become a master at the craft of photography, both still pictures, which I do of like birds and wildlife and stuff.
You're pretty masterful at it now. If those photos that you post are
a real professional, can tell the difference between what I do and what they do.
It's like when I listen to a band and when like someone else does, I'm hearing things.
Yeah, of course. So I want to put some time into that. Obviously, I have 3 kids, so busy family life.
Working on a 4th?
No, never.
Never.
But, you have 2. Imagine if you had another one.
Yeah.
And the amount of time that you would have to dedicate to the 3rd.
Yeah.
That comes off the top of my available free time.
Jim Gaffigan has a funny quote about that. He's got 5 kids, and he said, when people ask me, what's it like to have 5 kids? And he said, imagine you're drowning in a pool, right? And with 4 kids that you're also trying to save, and someone throws you a baby.
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
That's about right.
Yeah.
So, and I have one going to college this year, so that's going to take up a lot of time and effort. And so, I have to be, the thing that I should really be resolving is not to be taking on too much in the new year, because I also have a full-time job, which will be going live at some point in the next 6 months. They keep telling me not to come to the office. Who am I to argue?
Yeah.
But at some point that's going to click in. And if I have all this other stuff going on around me, and that also gets on, so I have to kind of be careful. So a little bit of recovery work, keep doing the podcast, get the SMART certification. That'll take care of that stuff. Then I got the photography mastery. I have all of the family stuff, which is my favorite part of all of it. And I also want to keep up the running, do more strength training, lose 10 pounds.
You're going to lose 10 pounds?
Yeah. It's belly. It's all belly
skinny.
Fat. Yeah. Or, just change my body composition, man. The thing is, like, I'm trying to figure out what crazy diet to engage in the new year, and I can't, I'm like, well, should I become like a raw vegan, like Rich Roll, or should I become like what's the other one? What's the opposite of that?
A carnivore, omnivore?
Carnivore, maybe, but what's that diet where ketogenic diet?
Is that where you put butter in coffee?
Something like, yeah.
No, that doesn't sound healthy.
Yeah. I've tried the ketogenic diet. It doesn't work for me.
Did you try my diet?
The chicken salad diet?
The one where you just starve yourself and you don't eat.
Intermittent fasting, they call that now.
But I wasn't as measured. I just didn't eat until it was so overwhelmingly painful that I had to. And then I would eat a little bit until it stopped being painful. And I did that it's very unhealthy, and please don't do that.
I can't do that.
But it could work.
My problem is I really like food, and I always have,
Who doesn't like food?
Well, some people can get away with not eating a lot of food.
Yeah,
like that food doesn't interest them as much.
Yeah, no, I have friends like that.
But I have found and in the past when I quit smoking crack in the 80s and I got super hyper focused on what I was putting into my body, almost it was like an opposite of what I was doing for the 5-6 years preceding. I became a macrobiotic vegan, and all I would eat is brown rice, vegetables, and tofu for a year and a half.
Definitely a balance.
So, yeah, because it's you don't want to fall into orthorexia, which is basically an eating disorder where you're obsessed with food purity and following sets of rules around food.
But it fits in with your addictive.
Yeah, I mean, we should totally do an episode on eating disorders at some point because they pop up in weird ways, and they're not all bulimia or anorexia. There's orthorexia is huge amongst recovered addicts because it incorporates intense excessive exercise with a hyper focus on purity of your diet, and that's its own eating disorder. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. For the new year. I mean, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be challenging. I hope COVID goes away so we can, plan things.
Yeah, I'd like to go away a little bit and do some more museuming.
Yeah, I would like to have
together.
I would also like to have maybe a meeting of some of our listeners.
Yes.
Like in-person meetings.
That is a goal of ours, is to have Monkster meetups and maybe even retreats and just kind of like because like I always say, this is a team. We're doing this together, and what better way than to actually be together?
Right.
Cool. So next year's going to be great, and I keep telling everybody it will be great.
It will
be great. The more times
great.
I say it, the more likely I am to be disappointed when it isn't.
Just don't become too attached to things going a certain way.
No. And, okay, so I was very fortunate to get a bunch of Monkster New Year's resolutions and goals. The first ones I'm going to read come from the Inner Sanctum on Patreon.
Okay.
A lot of these came through on Discord. The first one was Get Smart Aaron, you all know, says her New Year's resolution is to stay off the cigs, which I gave up about a month ago or something like that. And so more of what I love and to do more of what she loves. Great.
Bo
from the Inner Sanctum says,
I want to figure out how to use my school benefits from the Army and take a couple of night classes.
It's a very practical goal.
Yes.
I like it. I've been talking to Bo a lot, actually. He was one of the first guys to come on Discord, so we've been like, bing, 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 bing.
Figuring it out together.
Yeah. I mean, the guys on there were like, we're going to the show together. When you're away, I call on the Monksters. Another Inner Sanctum Monkster, Melissa M, says, 2 hours screen time a day. I only have 1 more minute left today due to trying to figure out Discord. LOL. Also, to make it to 1 year sober. And
admirable goals.
Listen, I didn't realize that that's what you were doing, because you did make a comment on Discord about like, I just wasted all of my daily allotment of screen time on talking to you guys on Discord. But what I didn't realize is you're self-binding.
Yes.
For your screen time.
Right.
And this is something that, so now I get it.
Do you have a plexiglass, Melissa, thing with a lock on it, a time lock? Because I used to have one of those for the kids when I would lock up their phone in this plexiglass thing with a timer lid, and I would set it for like an hour, and you couldn't open it until an hour went by.
That's some like serial killer shit. And I've been watching Dexter, and that makes me think of like...
How is that serial killer stuff? You put the phone in for an hour, and you turn a time lock.
It sounds crazy. But
I don't know. I mean, that was, back in the early days when you could actually take their phone without them, like, feeling like you would cut off their arm or something.
Oh, God, yeah, forget it now. We're basically becoming, like, enhanced humans with this phone, We're not even...
Which brings us to Wharf Dad's resolution, which is not to sleep with a phone in the bedroom in 2022.
Yeah, thank you, Wharf Dad.
I wish I could do that one.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know about you, but, like, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I just lay there quietly and stress about things.
Yeah, me too.
My wife will pick up her phone and like scroll around on the phone for an hour.
My wife too.
I don't get that at all. Like, because if I put those light rays beaming right into my brain, I would be so awake. I don't think I would ever sleep after that.
And then I'll be on the Recovery in the Middle Ages, the group, and like I'll see someone post something, and then I write that, and then like bing, 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 bing. Yeah. Dopamine's firing away.
Right. It's to me, I don't know, but maybe it's. People are different, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife is probably has more of an intellectual life than I do, interior one, because she, I just lay there and like hope that I'll eventually go back to sleep. But she's like, looking at stuff, using the mind.
My trick is to listen to podcasts, but I can't listen to recovery podcasts because my brain engages. I listen to Mysterious Universe or Astonishing Legends podcasts, which are my favorite paranormal podcasts. Mm-hmm. And they're high quality, and they have soothing voices. And it's interesting enough where I'm like listening to it and it distracts me.
Right.
But not so interesting that I get caught up in it. And I've been doing that since college. I used to listen to Coast AM on a radio when I went to sleep. So I'm trained to do that.
I went the other way, man. I put earplugs in. I have a white noise machine, and it has to be black as night in my room, or else I don't sleep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. And that was Wharf Dad from the Inner Sanctum. He was one of the early adopters. Thank you for that. And then I'm pretty sure 8Baller Rob from Discord.
Great name.
I'm pretty sure that's Rob S.
Yeah,
that everybody
I think
knows.
it is. Yeah.
Okay, good. And he's also in the Inner Sanctum. He says primarily very much just about keeping going for me. I'm at around 5 weeks at the moment, with the final hurdle tomorrow night at a friend's. Fancy working up to, he's British, that's right. I fancy working up to 5K running wise, and by the end of January, was going to tackle the vapes and try to moderate it a bit more.
You sound like Russell Brand.
But think that might be too much too soon. Cheerio.
Cheerio.
He didn't actually write that yet, so rate my British accent. Jennifer D. from the Inner Sanctum says, continue not drinking alcohol, cut back on sugar, upping the exercise, and stop being so bitchy. Definitely need to work on my patience.
I, too, am going to stop being so bitchy in 2022.
Please stop being so bitchy.
I can be such a bitch.
Thank
now
you,
we shift over to the Facebook group, folks, right?
The private Facebook group. And, guys, if I'm reading you from the Facebook group and you're also on in the Inner Sanctum, my apologies. I'm still figuring out which username is which.
Jeffrey C. says, listen to, he wrote the name. Yeah. Listen to more RMA. That's one we could all get behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do.
Tommy D. says, funnily enough, not drinking.
That's a British thing, I noticed.
Right. That's funnily a good enough. One. Funnily enough, not drinking.
Right.
Anna Q says, it's definitely starting the exercise for.
What did I
don't know. There's a word missing.
She wants to up the exercise. And if you reverse, here's a conspiracy theory. Look at her name. If you reverse the last letter with her name, it's QAnon. Right? What if it's a QAnon like sleeper cell that's trying to infiltrate the RMA movement?
Could be.
Just kidding, Anna Q. Who's next?
Maya A.N. Improve my relationship with sugar.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm seeing. A lot of people who get into recovery start to, like we just said, look at their diet. And sugar is a major culprit. There's a few things. Salt, sugar, caffeine are things people start looking at after they drop the booze and drugs.
Well, when you quit drinking, you crave sugar because of the liver stuff. So, I don't know. For like 3 months after, I was just eating everything that had sugar in it I could get my hands on. But the problem is if it doesn't go away, and then it becomes a habit, and then you got to break the habit.
Right.
So Melissa L says, to keep doing what I'm doing, 533 days sober. It hasn't been easy, but it's getting better.
Wow.
ODAT.
Nice. One day at a time. 533 days. That's so great, Melissa. Thank you. Mark N., he's a new one. He says, need to work more on my emotional sobriety. I was so happy to see a Monkster talking about emotional sobriety. This is something that's important to me. It's something I just learned about, really, in
that book.
In the book, all of this research we did all year, I'm like exploding with this extra stuff here. But
Krista K wants to quit smoking.
Yep, good idea.
Tony W wants to do lifestyle stuff, no alcohol, eat healthy, exercise. The family issue I want to work on is all my grandparents are dead. The grandmothers really held the family together, especially during the holidays. Want to figure out how to all around improve our family relationships. That's a tall order.
Yeah, but he's a tall guy, I think.
Oh, well, then it works.
I hope he's doing okay. He was in the, I think he was in the tornado area.
All right, that Tony.
Allie DP says, I'm starting off the new year with 75 hard?
With a group of people. I think it's an exercise regime.
Oh,
75
okay.
hard. 75 days of twice-a-day workouts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of water, healthy eating plan, and 10 pages of nonfiction reading per day. That will break the sugar addiction. I want to quit the nicotine gum early in the year and find a therapist I like also.
Great.
I love all of these. These are great New Year's resolutions.
Thanks for sharing them with us. Now you're all accountable since we've read them out in public.
Yeah. So now you got to do it.
Yeah. Whatever you said you have to do, better get on that.
Yeah. I was a little reluctant to. How are we doing on time here?
We are 1 hour and 54 minutes.
Okay.
So we are coming to the end.
Well, I did want to do Recovering the News and then maybe sign off.
Okay.
Is that okay?
It's always okay.
All right. Recovering in the news, recovering. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy motherfucking New Year, motherfucker. That was a new
That was the holiday version.
Enjoy.
So, Recovery in the News is an article, I think it was in the New York Times. The title of the article is I Was Powerless Over Diet Coke. Aaron sent me this because it was, and I scoffed. I said, Diet Coke. And then I realized, there's something to this addiction thing.
Yeah, there could be something to it.
So, after I discovered Diet Coke in 1982, says the author, I drank at least 3 to 4 12-ounce cans nearly every day for the next 4 decades, no matter where in the world I was.
Hey, you discovered Coke in 1982, didn't you?
I did, but it wasn't diet. It was full strength. So this person bought out an entire store's inventory in New Delhi, India, because she feared she might not encounter another soda in the rest of the country, who stashed cans in her room when she visited her parents like an 18-year-old with a bong, except she was in her 40s. At various times, I tried to stop, but I could never deprive myself for longer than a week. As a non-coffee drinker, it was my morning beverage. She tried kombucha, LaCroix, Zevia, and nothing satisfied the cravings. No point in caffeine-free soda. I loved my fully loaded Diet Coke and only in the silver and red can so I could hear the Pavlovian pop when I cracked it open.
Ooh.
I mean, reading this, I was struck by the parallel between this and like alcohol addiction or any other substance addiction, because it's not really a process addiction, although it's a process and a substance addiction all rolled into one.
Yeah, plus the chemicals in there.
Yeah, it's a caffeine. I mean, so after 40 years of this, like she said that earlier this year, she started getting this weird throbbing pain on the left side of her abdomen that the doctors couldn't find anything, that the colonoscopy, and she also noticed that the Diet Coke started tasting really bad. It started tasting like what she would imagine a Tide Pod would taste like, but she kept drinking it because she couldn't stop. Eventually, last June, after polishing off her second can of the day, pain shot across my stomach, and that was my last soda. Just like that, I was done after 39 years. Why did it take so long? Was I truly physically dependent, or was it simply a bad habit? Can a soft drink be addictive? And she goes into some of the DSM, definition of addiction, and talks about what things people can get addicted to, whether they be alcohol, drugs, gambling, paint thinner. And I've comes to the conclusion that she was dealing with a substance-related addictive disorder. Even though Diet Coke isn't mentioned specifically, you have the twin issues of caffeine use disorder, and you also have the fact that artificial sweeteners are like so much more addictive. Yeah.
I come from a world of conspiracy theories that, when I listen to these paranormal podcasts, one of the things that I've heard about over the years is this aspartame conspiracy theory, that it's really this like, it's designed to addict you and make you complacent. And it, like, people who are drinking a lot of stuff with aspartame have like reduced sex drive, like all of this stuff like that. It's some interesting things, but aspartame is rough. Yeah.
There's actually a Facebook group called Diet Soda Coke Drinkers Who Want to Quit. It has 1,100 members.
Jesus.
There's probably a subreddit if there's one for that. But Mr. Walsh, who is the moderator of that group, said that he quit smoking 17 years ago, and that was easier than giving up Diet Coke. He went cold turkey and suffered terrible headaches along with feeling irritable and tired. He had to take aspirin and distract himself, and it was basically he was manifesting the classic signs of addiction, of substance addiction.
Yeah.
To a substance that most people, like if they drink it at all, don't really think much of it. I mean,
no, our former president was famous for not drinking alcohol, but it was known that he drank like 12 cans of Diet Coke a day. And this is something I've seen it a lot in my life. There's people who all they drink is Diet Coke and they love it. But when you taste it, sort of like beer, like people who are addicted to alcohol, they can drink it all day, and then someone like a kid or someone who doesn't drink much will taste it and be like, oh, it's gross.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, man.
I mean, I'll drink one occasionally because I won't drink sugary soda because it's empty calories.
Yeah.
But so I don't really even notice the nasty taste anymore. But I mean, you have people here who are like this Lethea Medina who her Diet Coke addiction interfered with her life because she was always late for work because the line at McDonald's was too long.
Wow.
Like she would be waiting for a fountain soda. So I don't know. Interesting. And it speaks to the fact that is addiction really related to a certain substance, or is it a set of processes, a set of brain stimulation, brain triggers? I
don't know, man.
You were seeking the unified theory of addiction, but I don't know.
It's crazy, and this is something. The more research we do here, it's just starting to look that way. I'm getting a more complete picture of addiction. Right now, I'm reading Evan Haynes and Bob Forrest's new book called Can America Recover, which is like a textbook.
It's a good book.
And we're reading it too for the show. And it's like it starts in like the history of mental illness.
Wow, yeah,
and how
crazy.
it's developed. I mean, he gets into everything. But what he's doing is he's setting the table for us to get, to see now, look at the problem we have today and where it all comes from. You really get a bigger understanding of it.
Right.
And so, it is a multifaceted problem.
And that's it, bro, for recovery in the news.
All right. Well, I feel like it's not recovering the Middle Ages without something weak and weird.
It's up to you. We're at 2 hours.
Weak and weird. Former NASA engineer revealed to have been boy at center of the Exorcist case. This is too big a story to just forget about. By Tim Binnall. Long shrouded in mystery, the identity of the boy who served as the inspiration for the legendary story The Exorcist has been revealed to be a former NASA engineer who passed away last year. By way of an investigation by J.D. Sword from the magazine Skeptical Inquirer, it has been determined that Ronald Edwin Hunkler was the then 14-year-old individual who underwent a series of exorcisms back in 1949 at his home in Cottage City, Maryland. Word of the strange case purported demonic possession captivated writer William Peter Blatty, who subsequently penned a fictionalized version of the account titled The Exorcist, which, as everyone knows, was a big movie. I'm not going to go on and read this entire article.
The movie was partially filmed on the floor that my freshman dorm room was in.
No kidding.
At Fordham University, because it's a Jesuit university, and the Jesuits were the ones that did the original exorcism of this kid, and
right
in the movie as well.
But in the paranormal world, this has been a huge question over the years. Who was the boy that The Exorcist was based on? Of course, in the movie, it's a little girl, and he's always been anonymous. So this is kind of cool for us paranormal nerds out there. Now we know the identity of the inspiration.
It's interesting that he became a NASA scientist and worked on the Apollo program.
Did you even know? You knew it was based on a true story, right? Or you didn't?
I really didn't.
It is.
I had no idea.
Really? And that's why I do this news. That's why Weak and Weird is so important. I'm, shedding light on this stuff that's going on in the ether.
Yeah.
And that's This Week in Weird. We can wrap it up now. Okay. Happy New Year. Well, that about does it for today.
It does.
I hope you guys all had a great time. I had a good time. Did you?
Oh, sure.
Great. Visit us at our newly revamped middleagesrecovery.com. Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter. So tweet us at TwatUTwit. Support your favorite show. Give us a 5-star review, please, on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. Join our private Facebook group. Find us at patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages to get into the inner sanctum, get the bonus shows, get the Discord discussion forum. It's awesome. Buy a t-shirt, write and say hello.
Oh, yeah. Buy a t-shirt.
Yeah, please. We still have a ton of t-shirts. We love meeting Monksters and chopping it up online. And finally, the best way to help the show is to share it with a friend. If you get something out of our little show, please share the love and help grow the RMA movement. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
That's progress, not perfection.
Happy New Year!
Bye. Be good. Don't drink tonight.